Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and in this video, I want to discuss episode 5 of his Dark Materials, the HBO show, the first season. And just by that description alone, you can already kind of gather that it's going to be spoiler-filled. I assume that you've seen the episode. So I'm going to talk about it from that perspective, and later on I will talk about it from the perspective of the book. Because I read the books a while ago, and I absolutely love them. Now, I already love this TV show, but this episode, episode 5 in particular, solidified it for me. It was a fantastic episode. To be honest, I was a little bit nervous based on the previews going into it, that it would be a little bit slow, or what would it turn into. But the trailers just didn't do it justice going into it, and I'm kind of rethinking about watching the previews moving forward because of that fact. A lot of things happen in this episode. First off, I love the developing relationships, like the fact that it took its time, and we're seeing the developing relationship between Lyra and Lee Scoresby, and also Lyra and Iorek. The way she faced off with him, you know, she had that bit of scaredness to her when she was out alone with him, and yet she was unafraid to approach him. So she says, you know, you're warm, I'm cold. Very simply stated, but she nonetheless, you know, says it, and he gives her the nod of, okay, you can kind of brush up against me and keep warm. And that in itself already tells you that there's enough, in his own way, he's giving her affection. And there's such a respect for Iorek. Not that there wasn't before, but you see it just developing when she goes to, you know, when she's off on her own trying to open that door right before she finds Billy. The fact that she's talking pantomime, and I love this device of it. The fact that she has a demon, so she can of course express her thoughts, and she says, you know, I can't let Iorek see me in fear, essentially. And I love those moments because, you know, like I said, there's that respect for Iorek from Lyra. And Daphne Keane, just I loved her in Logan, but in this series, it's obviously a lot about her, and I think she is just killing it overall. To go back to her and Lee Scoresby, you know, for a moment when he delivers the news that Billy had died, I thought, you know, he would tell her that, like, the stereotypical line would have been like, I don't think that's a good idea, but he says, no, of course you can. And Lyra goes off and sees Billy, sees his carcass, and really processes what all this meant. I mean, if you really think about it, she's a very young girl, not even in puberty, and she has to process a lot of this stuff, and it's a lot to take in, but I think she's handling it really well. And again, Daphne Keane is really bringing that and bring that physicality, bring that visualness to it all. And there's that great line of from Lee Scoresby. I thought that this in particular summarized kind of a lot of the themes of this show, which obviously stem from the book, but the show in general. You know, Lee Scoresby says, like, it's about control. No soul means they can't do anything. I'm paraphrasing, so don't think that's the actual quote. But nonetheless, that makes sense. You know, with the magisterium, it is all about control, and that's what Phillip Pullman, the writer of the book, is really going for. This idea of, you know, people trying to control other people. And I thought that was summarized really well by Lee Scoresby, and there's that great hug between them and so forth. So just really wonderful all around. Now, because I'm already on the idea of Lyra and control, let me get into Bolvangar. When you know, I thought that was just overall the episode was absolutely fantastic. Now, it was fantastically pained because there was a lot of emotion packed into it, but nonetheless, it ratcheted those moments in the best of ways. And so when Lyra gets captured by the oblation board, in essence, for the second time, and she goes there you know, as kind of nice, and I don't know what the right word is necessarily, but let's say she's trying to remain calm about it, right? As seemingly calm as she is, the way this is realized, she's basically going into an Auschwitz type place. And especially when she realizes that she's about to get the same clothes that Billy had on when he died, she knows full well what's the type of place that she's in. And I love the added moment when they try to test her on her demon, of like, your demon is this. I forget the exact animal Pantalaimon was in that moment, but then he changes and flies away, which makes them realize, oh, she's not quite an adult, therefore she can be experimented on, right? So that obviously puts her in danger. Now, what would have happened conversely if they realized she was an adult? I don't know. I don't think she would have been much better off. Maybe they just would have tossed her into the tundra, if you will, and probably better chances of survival. I don't know. Maybe not. But by Pantalaimon changing form just like that, it obviously tells them that she isn't quite of age yet in this realm, and so they label her. I forget what it was, Class A. This is a little bit different from the book because they don't have classes necessarily, but in essence, I do like the switch where they're making her seem like, hey, we got to do this now, otherwise she's gonna essentially become an adult. So she's ripe for the picking, so to speak, in the worst of ways. So Bolvangar, like the few moments that we got already were just wonderfully realized in a horrific fashion, of course, but nonetheless just well done and well executed. So I applaud it for that. Now, the other half of this episode that we got was the Will Parry episode. I didn't expect that this would come up. I know based on the comments from a lot of you guys that have been watching my recap of it, didn't expect to see him till the end, didn't expect to see him prominently featured, and yet here in episode 5 we got a lot of him. Now, whether or not we're going to see him in this capacity in the next couple episodes remains to be seen, but I did like it because so this doesn't spoil anything because we're seeing it. But in case you haven't read the books, I guess maybe, and sometimes you can consider it spoilery. But in The Subtle Knife, which is the second book, that's the first time we meet Will Parry. Whereas with this, like the book is able to kind of create the backstory very simply in just a couple of words, and a TV show is going to have a much harder time. So them doing this sets up the backstory, and rather than seeing it as backstory or like flashback terms, we're seeing it happen in real life. So I do like that, and I thoroughly enjoy Will's mom in this because you can sense that, like in the book, to me at least, she seems a lot more not as all there, whereas here, it's not that she's psychotic necessarily, it's that she sees what people don't. And there's that great line from Iorek Byrnison, so I'm going to make the connection, where he says, like, bears can't be tricked because bears see something that humans have forgotten. And I think when I look at Will's mom, I feel like she sees that. She sees what most people don't. Certainly her husband did, and they must have... that's backstory in of itself that who knows if we'll get, but her seeing these small little details of the carpet being moved and so forth, she sees things that most humans don't. Certainly Will, and that's very fascinating to me and very true of a lot of these things. Like it permeates its motif, and so I appreciate that. So overall, I think this episode is a prime example of really strengthening the core of the book in a visual way. The only kind of caveat, and it's not like a nitpick or anything wrong necessarily, but the house that Will and his mom live in, I didn't imagine it to be in this way. Maybe that's just on me. I just imagined it kind of more suburban, kind of regular house type of place. But that doesn't make it. If nothing else, it makes it seem like that John Parry was really successful and he was able to afford this house for his family and whatnot. So, and by the way, speaking of the money, it's very interesting that that they note that John Parry is sending all this money to his family. Now, it's small sums over a large period, which, as they note, is a marathon, not a sprint. So he knew he was going to be gone for a long time. So that's very intriguing, and I'm curious to see how this plays out. Obviously I can guess at it based on the books, but in this context, I do like how they're executing a lot of this, and again, it's the spirit of it, not necessarily exactly the way the book is written, and so I love that. To that point, Will sort of taking up boxing, I think that's going to come into play. Like, he's got the strength, and he's a literal fighter. So, that's what we glean of him in this episode. We also see the bullying that happens, which, minor spoiler alert, we get flashbacks in the book, but we never really fully see. And so, now we're seeing it. So I do like the way this is going, and I like the interconnectivity of it. I like the pacing of it. Again, if I had only one gripe, it's the fact that the trailers didn't do this episode justice. I thought it was going to be a very bland episode, and I wasn't looking forward to it. But in fact, it was one of the better episodes of this entire series. So, yeah. Now, let me kind of go into the book of it. So if you're not interested in the book, you haven't read the book, maybe tune out. And I thank you for joining me this far, and by all means comment down below what you thought of the episode, because it's not my intention to just have this be me saying my thoughts. I want to create a forum for us to discuss this, in my opinion, wonderful show. But as far as the book, obviously as far as continuing Lyra's story, for the most part, it's very much on point. Now, the differentiations are that her and Lee Scoresby have a lot more scenes. Costa wasn't in this section of the book, and the fact that she is, and the fact that the child that Lyra finds is in fact Billy, really makes it meaningful, impactful in a nice way. I think that rounds it very well. Certainly, the biggest thing that isn't in the books is the Will storyline is not happening. Certainly not at this point, but I do like it. So I think, they're really finding their stride. I can't say it any differently than that. But nonetheless, so those are kind of my various observations based on this episode. Where they're going, I did see the preview. Obviously, I feel like, we're going to spend a lot of time in Bolvangar. But I'm not going to read into it too much, because I was just way off about all my predictions last time, and so I'm just going to enjoy the ride. I have a sense of where things are going based on the books, obviously, but nonetheless, it's just fun to really watch. So I'm excited. Thank you for joining me as always, and please, as I said before, comment down below so we can continue the conversation. And I look forward to chatting about episode 6. Only 3 episodes left, but that's okay. They're very jam-packed, and so it's absolutely wonderful. But anyway, I'm at Phil Svitek on social media. I'll see you next time.